Hi, I'm Sammy. This is my YouTube channel, Sounds Like Sammy, and I guess now becoming my podcast called Nose Job. It is titled Nose Job after an album that I'm making. I am a music artist, and the album is called Nose Job. And the album depicts my journey from defying my society, starting with my nose. Okay, everyone telling me, oh, you should get a nose job, you should get a nose job, and me deciding, I like my nose though, the way it is, and I'm not going to do that, which kind of led to me defying a bunch of other things that my society was telling me to do that I didn't want to do, and getting me to here where I'm realizing the world is magical, and I'm, as I've heard many people say, re-enchanting my world and my life, and I really love that, and so I'm sharing it in the hopes that it can help other people, but also by sharing it like this, it is very validating to myself about my own experiences, and I deserve that. So, mostly doing this for me, but if it helps you, then that's also awesome. So, today, I want to talk about telepathy again. I was recently interviewed on Robin Lassiter's podcast called Earth, a Love Story. The episode is titled Death, Nature, and Telepathy. Please go listen to it. I go into my experiences with death and how that led me to understanding that there's a lot more going on in the world and life, and telepathy is real, and you can be telepathic with your plants and nature. And there's just a lot more going on. So go listen to that, because there's some stuff there that I won't say here today. So if you want to hear it, you got to go listen. It's free. It's on Spotify. Go find it. But today I want to focus on telepathy. The telepathy tapes came out after Robin and I did our interview, which was wild to me because Robin asked me, hey, would you ever want to be on the podcast? I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, I'm a writer and I've been feeling like I should share my experiences more. And she asked me, what do you want to share? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't really know. And she gave me some advice, which is just to kind of like tune in and see what I pick up and what feels right. And when I did that really strongly, I felt like, oh, I should talk about telepathy. I don't know why. I don't know why I felt that. I was just like, telepathy. I gotta talk about it. Do what you want with that. As I always say, you don't need to believe anything I say. You don't need to take on any of my beliefs. Do whatever you're going to do with this. I'm just sharing what happened, how I experienced it, and what it feels like to me. I don't really know, but that happened. And then right before she released our episode, the telepathy tapes came out. And now it's the #1 podcast on Spotify. I'm a little suspicious. Something feels like there's some type of conspiracy going on, but I don't know where it begins or ends or what. I don't know. Again, do that what you want. But what am I going to talk about? Telepathy, and specifically how you can be telepathic. Because I believe that it is just a human trait. And it's a little bit more complex, I guess, than just, like you can read someone else's thoughts. It's a lot more than that. But I kind of want to talk about how I came to it, and mostly I realized it because of my marriage, because it started in my husband's mind, and that has been interesting. So I want to share something that, again, I wrote, because remember, I'm a writer first. So I experienced something, I usually think about it a lot, then I talk about it, then I write about it. So I'm going to share what I wrote about it. Okay, here we go. Imagine for a moment the types of thoughts that typically cross a heterosexual man's brain in a day as he walks about the world. Conditioned by a male-dominated, capitalistic, and hyper-sexualized society. Now, imagine that man has a wife and that wife can read his mind. Are you picking up what I'm putting down here? She is conditioned differently. She is conditioned to fear other women and their beauty, conditioned to please her man with her own beauty, conditioned to be afraid of the thoughts that are crossing her husband's mind when another woman crosses his path, because she's been taught her worth is in her looks. If her man is ever looking elsewhere, her entire way of life is threatened. And she can read her husband's thoughts. That's not good. That's a couple with some deconditioning to do. But how do two people navigate that? The struggle isn't particularly unique. Many couples of varying identities share fears of infidelity and self-worth. So how does being married to someone that can read minds make this so different? Well, as it seems, when confronted with the "do you think they're attractive?" question, most people can easily lie and bring some comfort to their partner. It doesn't really matter if they found attraction to a stranger or not. And a lot of people can easily accept that answer, lie or not, feel some relief, and move on. But someone who can read minds, can they accept the answer and move on? For me, no. And it wasn't because I wanted to be conditioned this way. My beliefs are quite the opposite, but the conditioning, as I found out, was deeper, and apparently it made me miserable. In our case, I knew he was lying because I heard his thoughts when the attractive person passed by. I wish I could say I had the confidence enough to ignore it. Sometimes I did, but a lot of the time I didn't, which hurt. It made me worried how quickly he could lie to me and why he thought a lie was better than the truth. Didn't you know I could feel it? I could taste the lie in my mouth. I could hear it ringing in my ears, feel it scratching and scraping my skin. This was before I knew about psychic intuition and telepathy being real. To make matters worse, he didn't know I knew he was lying. I didn't even know for sure that I knew he was lying until my telepathy proved itself to me more times than I could ignore. It was a problem, a really big problem, and I didn't know how to handle it. Confronting him on this type of male behavior was difficult for me because our society not only accepts it, but encourages men to think this way. Actually, it punishes men if they don't behave this way towards women. Let's be honest here. Many friends I have will say they're fine if their partner engages in thoughts like this and have no issue with porn or other related habits that their partners might engage in. I wish for years I could be that way and be okay with it, not make a fuss. I even tried to tell him it was okay, that it didn't bother me anymore, and hoping that it might, I don't know, be true. Or maybe it would give him some space to be more honest with me about it. I don't really know. But he still hid it from me. It didn't matter. Something inside me screamed every time he lied about it. Was it the behavior bothering me so much? The anxiety and fear of what it might have meant about how he felt about me or my body? Was it something else? I could not make sense of it. But then one day, it clicked. It wasn't about me at all. It was about how it made him feel, and he felt ashamed. He didn't like thinking that way or participating in typical man habits. It made him uncomfortable. But he also thought he was supposed to be that way. Once I realized that, it didn't matter if I could accept it or not. It needed to change for both of us, and the lying had to stop, which also meant I had to confront the telepathy and what was going on with me. Fun stuff. I'll be honest, I didn't see life throwing me this curveball, which is annoying considering the whole psychic event of it. But telling my husband, hey, by the way, I can hear all your thoughts, yes, even those thoughts, was my nightmare at first. I know what you might be thinking. How do you know you're hearing his thoughts and not just having anxiety? I cannot tell you how many times I told myself it was just me and my crazy, neurotic, hypervigilant brain overtaxed from shitty men in the past. Capitalism, late-stage capitalism to add to that, and my childhood trauma, and just life trauma, just existence. I wanted that to be the case really, really, really badly. I promise you, I did. And I really tried to make that the case. But something wasn't right. Something was stirring that shouldn't have been there, according to what I knew of the world, that is. I knew things I shouldn't have known. I thought things that weren't mine. What brought me to finally knowing without a doubt that I was reading my husband's thoughts and not just filled with trauma and anxiety. It's a long story. I'll probably need more time to tell it. And I actually do go into it in Robin's podcast, so go listen if you want to find out. But basically, it was confronting him about it. That's how I knew. All right, so that's all I have written so far about that. So why am I sharing this? Being in such a close relationship, like a marriage, is kind of what really brought me to understanding, that's my dog in the background, understanding telepathy and realizing it's real. But that, again, like I said in that passage, it's through empathy. It's not that I'm in his mind and I'm trying to figure out what he's saying. It's that because I'm close to him and I care about him and I care about how he feels about things, I automatically put myself in his shoes and I start empathizing. And from that point of deep empathy is when the thoughts end up syncing up. And that was difficult because I didn't realize that was happening. I didn't know that that's what was going on for a really, really long time. So when I had thoughts popping into my head, I'm thinking, oh, that's just me. I should, and I kept trying to control it by controlling me, thinking that, oh, like, I'm not thinking that, by thinking, oh, that's me. I thought that when someone walked by. That it was an intrusive thought and that I was having a problem and I was having anxiety and I needed to stop it. But for some reason, I couldn't shut it off. And the only time it would be shut off is if I was blocking him out and having a day where I was kind of distant from him. So I didn't like that. So coming to understand this had a really big impact on how we communicated with one another. Having these experiences, we realized we're not alone in our own heads. And if we were going to have a happy life and relationship, we're going to have to make sure that our heads were healthy spaces for ourselves and for the other one. So it was interesting. It kind of forced us to have conversations we wouldn't have otherwise had. It forced us to confront things that we may not have confronted otherwise, And it was tough. It was scary to be like, yeah, I can kind of, like, I'm picking up on this stuff. I know that this is happening. And it required a level of honesty that we've never, I don't know, I don't think anyone ever expects you would need to do. I know personally, I've always kind of lived my life that way. And that's something that I recognize as part of my particular neurodivergence, that I hate lying. I don't do it well. I don't like lying, so I don't ever want to use my energy for that. It just feels like a really big waste of time. And I don't know, maybe on some subconscious level I knew that telepathy was real and that consciousness was shared, so there's no point in it. It's kind of how I felt my whole life, that there's really no point. At some way or another, someone's going to find out. So why? You're just wasting time. It's just a waste of time. And we came to it in our, my marriage, in our relationship, that, yeah, it was a waste of time. And because even times when, if in the moment I didn't catch it, I'll have dreams. And this isn't just with my husband, it's with anyone. If anyone is dishonest with me in some way, that's significant to me, that has some kind of impact on my life, I guess. If it's small, whatever, I'm not gonna, if it doesn't interfere, it's not causing me problems, I'll gloss over it. But something that matters to me, I will have a dream where the lie is told to me and then I see what really happened. And sometimes it's a more dramatic version, but yeah, I'll dream about it. So just watch out. And that's something I do talk about in Robin's podcast. So again, I won't go too far into it here. But the other thing that started happening too is that when Robin and I started working on this stuff, when we got healthier, he started picking up on my thoughts. And there was one day in particular, I was feeling bad because where we've been lately in our relationship, he makes more money. There was a time where I made more when he was in grad school and I was covering stuff. But of late, he's been the one paying more things. And I just kind of had this moment where I was like, ugh, I wish I could just spoil him for once. I wish I could just cover the mortgage this month or, whatever. And I was feeling bad. And I guess in that moment I was projecting it to him, or I don't know, he's picking up on it. And he had been outside doing yard work, and he comes in the house and he's like, you feel bad for me? Why do you feel bad for me? Like, what? Like, don't feel bad for me. I'm fine. And he just had this moment of like, oh, stop. It's fine. Like, don't, he picked up on that. And it was weird to be on the other side of it. So I was like, whoa. It was cool though. But ultimately I felt very seen. So I really appreciated it, though I can understand why, it would feel intrusive for many people to have someone so close to you that they can be in your thoughts with you. I really liked it. And it allowed us to have a conversation that I wasn't going to bring up with him. And then we had it and we kind of worked through some stuff. So that was really cool. Generally, though, about telepathy. The thing that's challenging with this, and if you want to become telepathic yourself, it's something that like we're already doing. It's already happening. There isn't really anything you have to do, I guess, to cause it to happen. It's more about a mindset shift. You have to realize that this is happening and that your brain works in this way. Most brains work in this way. But something really important had to happen for us to get to this point and understanding was that we had to work on our shit. Like, we had to get healthier. This is really more of a thing of tuning in. And that's where, if you've heard it before, I don't know who coined it, but it's been referred to as telepathy, because you're tuning into emotions. You're having an empathetic connection with someone, and then the thoughts kind of line up. The emotions trigger thoughts in your mind, and it's more of a, because this emotion makes you feel this way, that when you also understand that person's perspective, you end up having the same types of thoughts. And when those thoughts sync up and then you communicate them, that's where you're like, whoa, that person just read my mind. How'd you know? I was just thinking that. Because I was feeling what you were feeling at the same time as what you were feeling. And I also had that thought. There's other times where I do think it is more of an actual, like, I sent you this information. And I've experimented with my family and friends before, trying to actually send information and receive information. And it works. It works. But something that it works with the people that I have healthy relationships with. So people that we've worked through some of our issues. And more importantly, getting myself to where I am at with it. And I would say of my friends and family, I have the easiest time sending and receiving information. And I think it just has to do with my awareness. I've just been a little bit more aware of it. And I've also been working really hard lately. And all of my friends and family have been working hard on this. But I've had a really big focus on healing and getting better, healing from my trauma, and healing my body. So this is the biggest thing I gotta say. If you're someone that wants to explore telepathy, you want to explore connections with other people to this depth, you heard the telepathy tapes, and you're like, wow, I want to try that with my family members. The best thing I could advise you on, based on my own experiences, I don't know how this happens with other people, based on what I experienced, you have to be willing to work with your body, and you have to be able to tune in to your body. The way I see it is the body is the tool that allows this to happen. It's your body. If your relationship with your body is not great, you're going to have a heart attack, in my opinion. So you got to think about it like if this is your tool, the quality of the tool will have an impact on the quality of the result of what happens. So if you know you've got some stuff going on with your body, something you've been avoiding, you're not really taking care of it the way you know you should, your body has its own intelligence. And when you sit down to tune in, it's the first thing you're going to pick up on is your body. In my experience, this is what happened with me. When I really started to sit down and tune into things, my body was screaming at me. There were things I was just ignoring. I wasn't addressing. I knew were wrong. And there were a lot of reasons why. It wasn't just me being avoidant fully. It was that the society that I'm in doesn't really support people in health and well-being. It doesn't. We do just enough to keep us alive, but not much in the way of thriving and actually just maintaining a healthy status. But our bodies want that. My body really, really wanted that and needed that. And for me to use it beyond for some of these extra abilities, I needed to address it first. I needed to take care of it and prioritize it. And that's not easy. And part of that was also emotional health. So emotional trauma was a big deal. And I did not realize just how much the body takes on emotional trauma. I know I've heard it so many times. People talk about it. Maybe part of me didn't believe it. I don't know. I guess I just didn't realize how literal it was. That literally trauma is stored in your muscles and parts of your body. And I knew it more as like, okay, yeah, if you're stressed, like, man, my shoulders are going to be tight. My neck's probably going to be tight because I tend to, go like this, scrunch up my shoulders. And okay, yeah, that's going to hurt from doing that all day. If I'm sad and I'm shrugging, that's going to hurt eventually. But learning that it was even bigger than that that no, the pain is chronically getting stored in a certain aspect of my body and it's affecting how the organs in that area are functioning. Okay, there's much deeper stuff on this, and I am not an expert, so please don't just take my word for it. Do your own research. There are plenty of medical fields that are looking into this and research is being done. Please, please, please go read about it for yourself. Don't just take my word for any of this. The only thing you can really take my word for is my own experiences and how my experiences feel. That's fine. Take your word on that, or take my word on that, but anything beyond that, fact check me. Please double check, because I'm always just interpreting things through my own lens, and the words that I might use to interpret that might have a different meaning to you, and so what you hear and what I'm trying to say could be different, and the best way to get around that is to do your own research. Go look stuff up, go read about stuff. Let it go through your perspective. Let it come through your mind and through your filters so that it can make sense to you from your perspective. Always encourage that. On that same note, though, on filters, I've talked about this on my TikTok before, but it's kind of interesting that I want to mention here. We all do have a unique perspective, and that's good. That's, we see things from our particular vantage points in life, our positions in life, our privileges in life or lack thereof, right? That all affects the way we take in information and how we feel about the information that's brought in. And that varies person to person. And that's something that I have found from studying communications. Remember, that was my major, and I studied journalism and photography with a really big focus on writing. But really studying communication and information and the ways that we consume it, I've just learned that something can mean, we might agree on a definition for a word, but that doesn't mean we agree on how that word feels. That we can feel differently about a word and feel differently about the definition of the word. So when I use a certain word, it means something to me and it feels one way to me, and that's why I'm using it, but that could be different for you. And I've seen so many miscommunications come down to just simple differences in emotions as it pertains to a particular word. Just a particular word. Like, that's how much those things can differ. Even though we agree in the definition, how we feel about that definition can be really, really different, and it has an impact. So to the point where you might not really understand what someone's saying to you. So now if you apply that to telepathy, again, kind of what I'm saying is why stuff like trauma and your filters and your perspective can twist information that comes in, and not even in a bad way twist, just that it distorts in a way that makes it unique to you. That any information that's coming in, including with telepathy, it's going to come through feeling and looking a particular way to you. And it might not be what was intended. And that matters. That matters. I think telepathy can purify that a little bit, but I really think it just depends on, again, how much work you've done on this. How much work have you done on clearing your traumas, or at least being aware of it? The amount of times we can have, I can say for myself, I've had trauma that I wasn't even aware of. I didn't even know. Maybe I had some faint awareness, but I wasn't consciously aware of how active a trauma was in my filters and affecting the way I was bringing in information and how I felt about things. So I was unconscious to a lot of stuff that from doing this work, I just became conscious of it. And I'm not going to sit here and say I've cleared it all, because I haven't. I'm still working through stuff, probably always going to be working through stuff. But just the awareness has at least made it easier for me to realize that I interpret things in a certain way. And just because I interpret it that way doesn't mean that's the only way it can be seen, the only way that it can be felt. And something about this aids in empathy. It helps me allow for another perspective, allow to feel what something feels like from someone else. And when we can do that, it helps with those disagreements. It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to agree with someone. I can get into Rob's perspective, or my mom's or my sister's perspective, or my neighbors, or my coworkers, and I can understand why they feel that way, why something looks that way to them, and have compassion and true empathy in that moment to be like, I see it, I get it. I don't agree, because though I might be able to temporarily step into your perspective, I have to live from this one. And if something's having a big enough impact, even though I can understand you and where you're coming from, and even if I can empathetically get into that groove with you and really feel it with you, that doesn't mean that it's okay still from my perspective. I could talk about this for a while, but I'll kind of just, I really want to leave it to, I guess, a bit of a warning that you have to tune into your body. And if you're someone that's tuned out of your body for a long time, it could be scary when you tune back in. This is tough. See how I want to word this. Something that I've heard a lot of people do when they try to sit down and meditate, for example. A common thing I hear from people who struggle to meditate is that it felt like there was a shadow or something over them and it made them afraid. I've heard people interpret this differently, and I have my own viewpoints on what that is. I will share that. Something I've heard a lot of people feel like, oh, it was like a shadow person, or maybe it was a demon. I think how you interpret that, it's going to depend on your current belief systems. If you are someone that believes in demons and angels, then I understand why you would feel that way. I'm personally don't, so that's not how I experience that. And to me, when I hear that, it's more of a shadow, but your own shadow. And this is something, run things through your own belief systems, run things through your own truths and your own experiences. If this doesn't resonate, leave it. If it resonates, spend some time with it. Do what you need to do. Take this information the way you need to take it. But something that anyone that I've kind of worked on with this, usually just been friends and family that have asked for my help, it's usually, in my experience, an aspect of themselves that they're running into, an aspect that they've been avoiding for quite some time because there's pain. And it's kind of natural to want to avoid pain. It's part of our human instinct to avoid pain. In avoiding pain, we help to stay alive. It's really just kind of a basic instinct to do that. But when it comes to emotional stuff, that avoidance can cause the problem to fester, and it can become like a really big, scary thing. And I liken it to healing, and how healing is scary and it's painful. And depending on what it is you got to heal from, the healing procedure, if you will, might feel more painful than the actual wound. Not always, but sometimes, right? If you think about, if you have, I don't know, a splinter, it hurts, right? It's irritating, but as long as you don't touch it a whole lot, you can kind of forget that it's there, and maybe it's not that bad. But the idea of digging it out, that will be painful. That's going to hurt to dig it out, and that might even hurt more than how the splinter feels on its own without digging it out. And you might be tempted to avoid that, digging it out, right? In the short term, it's not bothering me that much. I'm just gonna let it stay there. But what happens when you let it stay there? It gets infected. It festers. And now it does start hurting more and more and more. And now, when you have to go dig it out, now the skin is irritated and infected. And now that procedure is going to hurt a lot more than if you had done it before it got infected. You know what I mean? I see emotional healing in a really similar way, that it's, it doesn't always cause a big, scary demon shadow, but sometimes it does cause a big, scary demon shadow. And the process of facing it and taking care of it can be painful. And it might feel more painful than ignoring it, but it's still something you have to do, because it is causing harm to you, no matter how long you ignore it. And usually the longer you ignore it, the bigger the harm. So it's scary, and there's a reason why you're avoiding it. So you might interpret it as a demon, as a shadow figure, or who knows, however you might do it. And I'm not saying that there's no such thing as those things. I don't know. From my experiences, though, anytime I've encountered something like that, I found out it was me. It was me. It was a part of myself that I had shame for, I was ashamed of, or I was afraid of, or maybe a part of myself that I just wasn't quite ready to deal with yet. And then when I sat down to meditate, or I sat down to tune in, it came up and I was like, no, I'm not ready. And that's fine. If you're not ready, listen. There were so many times when I sat down to try to do something and I was not prepared for it, there was something else I really needed to do, or a way that I needed to set myself up better to be ready for that. And that's, again, if we're going to go back to more of a medical metaphor for this, if you're going to have a doctor dig a splinter out, you're probably going to want them to have gloves, like sterile objects. You don't want them digging in there with a rusty nail. That's just going to make it worse. So there is something to say about being prepared and being safe to actually do that work. So when it comes to telepathy, when it comes to this stuff, make sure you're prepared. Make sure that you've set up your situation for this to be a safe healing procedure. How that plays out is probably going to be different person to person. Make sure you're prepared, you're in a safe environment. If you can have a therapist, that's usually a good way to go, but it matters that you have the right one. And therapy is not accessible to all of us. For most of my life, I have not had access to a therapist. Even now, I would not say that I have reasonable access to a therapist. It's really expensive. I've been fortunate to be able to take advantage of it when I've needed it the most, and then taken what I could from those moments to then apply it in times when I couldn't afford it. But it's hard. It's not easy, especially if you're in this American society that I'm in. It's not easy. But something I can do to help if you are someone that's, you don't have access to it and you're dealing with it on your own, just take it really, really slow. Just be really kind to yourself and take it slow and just do little chunks at a time. Sometimes the best thing you could do is just gain a little bit of awareness. Don't even do anything to address it yet. Just let yourself gain some of that awareness and take it from there. Go really, really slow. Don't beat yourself up if you go really long stretches without addressing it. It's difficult. And if you're doing it on your own, just please be so patient and kind to yourself. And hopefully stuff like this helps. Hopefully this can be helpful. I'm not, I never profess to be a therapist or have any deeper understanding of that stuff. I just am someone that's done some work on myself and have gotten to certain conclusions. So maybe sharing it will help someone. I hope it does. But all that to say is, now you can see why when you have certain things that are in the way and you want to have a telepathic experience, you might need to clear some stuff out because it could be interfering with that communication. It could be distorting what you're getting in. And if you're working on it, you'll come to a time when you've made enough room. And it's not about your internal space being perfect and perfectly clean. I don't think you'll ever get there. I don't think any of us do. But it's just making enough room for activities. Clear out some space so that you can hold that centering space to allow someone else's emotions to come in. But don't let them stay. I've made that mistake too. Don't let them stay forever. Bring it in when it's helpful or when it's someone that's also helping you. And it really is a back and forth. It's a mutual connection. I know in the telepathy tapes they talk about how a lot of the spellers will only allow a connection if it's a loving one. I am so glad that they said that, and I'm glad that people are hearing that. And in that, I don't know if it's impossible to have a connection if it's not a loving one. I kind of think that it can be, it might be, but that they are maybe just choosing to shut it down if it's not an open, loving one. I don't really know. I would have to ask them what they think on that. From my experience, I have only had truthfully, like real, true telepathic experiences with people that love me and I love them. So there is a mutual back and forth. And I can't say that I would want to have that with someone that I don't feel that way with. Are there times where I've felt maybe I'm picking up too much information on a person that I don't know to that level and it makes me uncomfortable? Yeah. I've felt that, I don't really want to be like making eye contact with this person. And that is part of my neurodivergence. I am uncomfortable making eye contact with a lot of people unless I know them really well. And even then, if I am stressed out or I'm tired, I don't have the bandwidth. And there's something about eye contact that kind of invites that empathy, that I'm going to fall into an empathetic connection. If I don't have the bandwidth for it, I'm going to avoid it because for my health, that's what I need in that moment. And that's not something that's understood if you don't know what this experience is like. And other people might have other reasons why they avoid eye contact. I've just come to understand that this is one of the reasons why I have. It's that in that moment, there's too much going on and I can't handle the information. Or maybe there's something, my relationship with this person, I just don't trust that. I don't trust them enough to get that much information or be in their head with them. Not a safe space, not a place that I want to go. And again, I don't say this to say that, oh, if I'm making eye contact with you, I'm reading your mind. I don't think that's happening. Or if it is, I'm not paying attention to it enough to know that I'm reading your mind. So I hope that helps. In general, though, I would not say that it's a mind reading thing in the way media portrays it of, oh, someone else's voice is popping into my head. I don't know. Not in my experience. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's not been in my experience. So, as always, do with that what you will. But I think this topic in general is really important. I do think this is something that we're all doing to some level, some degree. We just haven't been allowed to be aware of it. I'm going to be really honest about this here. We have not been allowed to acknowledge this. We just haven't. Our society shuts it down fast. I mean, please listen to the telepathy tapes if you haven't. How insane that our society shut it down to a point where parents have not been able to have effective, meaningful communication with their children. Because when they started to have deep, connecting, meaningful conversation with their children, they were told to stop. I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they were like, no. I'm having a conversation with my kid and it's a telepathic one and I don't care. I don't care if that bothers people. I love that. And I'm coming to that point myself where I don't care if you don't like it. I don't care if someone doesn't like it. And I've had people get mad at me for sharing this. I've had people think I'm being irresponsible by sharing my experiences and the way I'm interpreting them. Other people and their interpretations are not my responsibility or my business. You're going to interpret this how you're going to interpret this. You're going to take this information how you're going to take this information. That's not my business. It's not my business what you do with this. It's not my business how you feel about this. It's my business that I've decided to share in case it's helpful to someone, but also I'm deciding to share it because I deserve to take up space in my unique way with the way that I'm experiencing life from my perspective of where I'm experiencing life. That is allowed to be out in the world. Just because there's a group of people that don't think they're having these experiences, they don't get to control me and my having these experiences or my expression of these experiences. You don't have to agree. You don't have to believe it. Just because I do, you don't have to believe it. And I don't need your permission to believe it. I don't need your belief to hold a belief of my own. Those two things can be separate. And I'm going to keep it that way. And I deserve to express this. And if there's people that will be helped by this, they deserve to hear it. So that's where we're at with this. And I'm so grateful to the telepathy tapes for everyone that did a very scary thing and spoke about this when they were told, shut up about it. Don't talk about that. That's crazy. Thank you so much for talking about it anyway. And for allowing me to sit here more comfortably and talk about this. And I'm so excited for all the people that are going to try this now, that are going to start doing some of the work that's involved with this, which is ultimately, in my opinion, healing, which, if this leads to more people healing, that's incredible. That's so incredible. I hope so. I hope that happens. So many people deserve to heal and deserve to experience true empathy too. And I think that that's where this can take us, and that's really, really beautiful. I want more people to be able to have the experiences that I've had, because they've been weird, but amazing. So that's it for me for today. I hope that was helpful. And if you have questions about this, if there's something I didn't cover or something I brought up that you don't quite understand, please leave a comment and let me know and I'll do my best. Okay, thank you.